Hi there, thanks so much for joining me today, whether you're watching or listening. As always, I just want to take a moment to say thank you so much to everybody who has liked, subscribed, followed, shared, listened, left comments. It's really lovely, and I'm loving the feedback that I'm getting so far. So this is the first month where I'm trialling reducing down the amount of episodes that I put out there. So there won't have been an episode last week, but there will be an episode. There'll be today's episode, and then I believe there'll be another episode next week because I'm putting in one to mark 20 weeks of my pregnancy when I get to that point, to give you a little update. So we'll see how that goes, but so far it feels like a nicer way to be doing things because I feel a little bit less rushed when it comes down to getting the content made. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, let's get started on today's episode. So today I'm talking about oxytocin. It's what I've been sharing on my Thursday theme on my social media, and it's what I have been talking about on my blog this month. Oxytocin is something that I talk about a lot. I strongly believe that my knowledge of oxytocin massively contributed to my first two labours and how straightforward they went. I strongly believe that my knowledge of oxytocin and what it does in the body when you're in labour massively helped me during my labours, and so I always try to get the point across that it's so important. And I think that if there was one thing that I could pick to focus on for any person, if somebody said to me, what one tip can you give me, it would be learn about oxytocin. It's hard to pick one tip, of course, because there is so much about birth that you could be learning, but I just think that if you've got oxytocin on your side, then things are going to run much smoother. So what is oxytocin? Well, oxytocin is a natural hormone that is found in, as far as I'm aware, all mammals, so us humans and, animals that are also mammals. We have, as humans, we have very, very similar birthing systems to the likes of, cats and dogs and other mammals. Just because they are animals does not mean that they operate particularly differently. And we get a strong oxytocin boost when we're in labour, and so do other animals. We get the highest oxytocin boost when we're in labour, and we also get an incredibly high oxytocin boost when we're breastfeeding. Oxytocin is it's called the love hormone because it is present when we are in a space where we feel safe, happy, loved, when we're doing something that we really enjoy. It contributes to that nice warm fuzzy feeling that you might get. It contributes, if you've eaten a really nice delicious meal and you start to feel a bit sleepy, that's oxytocin. Oxytocin is present when we are with our other half, when we're with people that make us really happy, when we're with our children, our pets. There are certain foods that boost it, and really amazingly, it's what powers our contractions. So if you have a good flow of oxytocin when you're in labour, your body is going to produce those contractions in a really efficient way. Now, the body is naturally producing oxytocin, but that doesn't mean that when you're in labour, it's just going to pump through your system without any problems. If we feel anxious or stressed or scared, then the anxiety will win over the oxytocin, and the two can't work together at the same time in the body. And unfortunately, anxiety is the one that wins out because oxytocin is a shy, gentle hormone. So what we often find is, for example, you might be labouring at home quite nicely and get to the hospital if you're having a hospital birth, and quite often labour will stall, and this is where people start to suggest interventions to try and get things moving along, or timing you, or putting a lot of pressure on your body to do what it needs to do. Now, the reason why this happens is because when you're at home and you're in your own environment, you're surrounded by things that make you happy, you've got control of what's going on, you might have the lights dimmed, you might have music on, you might have something on the telly that makes you laugh, your partner's right there doing nice things for you, you might have photos around that bring you joy, and you just feel safer when you're in your own environment. When you're on the transfer to hospital, whether it's in an ambulance or in a car, of course, your emotions are going to differ slightly between the two, but let's just say, for argument's sake, you're in a car. On that journey, you might start to feel an overwhelming sense of the unknown. You don't know what's going to happen when you get to hospital. So that will naturally produce anxiety in your body. And then when you get to the hospital, it's very bright, it smells different, there's lots of people around, it might be very noisy, very clinical, and you might start getting interruptions like, we need to do a vaginal exam, we need to do this, we need to do that before we can let you in the room, etc., etc. And that just naturally interrupts your flow of labour. And again, they might start talking about things like hormone drips, monitoring, all these things that you might have questions about. You might not necessarily know what they're talking about, especially if you haven't taken any kind of birth preparation classes. And it's just going to naturally start to diminish that oxytocin, especially the bright lights and the being watched and the being ask lots of questions. It's going to really put a hold on things, and then they'll say, oh, you're not progressing actually, so you come in, we've examined you, and you were at 5 centimeters or 6 centimeters, and it's been this amount of time and you're not progressing. Because as well, a lot of hospitals will say that they expect you to dilate at 1 centimeter an hour. Everybody is different, and the amount that you are dilating will largely depend on how well your contractions are coming through, and that will depend on how well your oxytocin is flowing. So if your labour is stalling, it's not that you aren't progressing well, it's that the environment that you're in is affecting your body's ability to do what it needs to do. And in actual fact, if they just left you alone and stopped checking you every hour or every 4 hours and timing you and all of this, you probably would get on a lot better. Overall, it shouldn't matter too much how much you're dilating. I can sort of see a little bit why, if it's taking you a long time to dilate and you're only dilating a little bit, why they might have concerns. But again, being left to allow your body to do what it needs to do is much more beneficial for you. And being told that they expect you to do something within a certain time, and we're going to come back and check on you in 4 hours, it puts a lot of pressure on you, and your oxytocin is going to go, no, I don't like this, I don't like to be watched, I don't like to be timed, I don't want to be observed, I just want to get on with what I need to do. So that in itself causes problems. Now, if you are stalling and you are taking a while to dilate, they may well say to you, well, we want to put you on an oxytocin drip to hurry things along. Now, first of all, there's not many things in life where hurrying them along makes the situation better. And so hurrying along labour, which in itself should not be, unless your body deems it so, a fast process. Your body might decide it's going to be a fast process, in which case, great, let it get on with it. But if it's not, if it's deciding, hey, we're going to take our time here, let it take its time, because it'll be much better for your body. So they will more than likely start to suggest trying to move things along by augmenting your labour. Now, they'll tell you, more than likely, that they're going to give you a drip of oxytocin. Now, it's not actually oxytocin, it has another name that I cannot pronounce very well, and I'm not going to try and pronounce. We're just going to call it, for now, synthetic oxytocin. Now, synthetic oxytocin, it's one of those things that I think it's amazing what they are able to do with science. Personally, I think it's particularly useful for if you want a managed delivery of your placenta, because there are certainly some circumstances where that's beneficial. I think that a lot of people would prefer to have a natural placental delivery, but it's personal to that person, and it's always worth considering, as with everything, the options as to which one is better for you. But it is, it's incredible that they've been able to create something that can do a similar function to what it does naturally in your body. Now, the thing with synthetic oxytocin is that it's not real oxytocin. And so, while yes, it can bring on your contractions, there are some things to be aware of. One of those things is that because it's forcing your contractions, it's potentially going to be a bit more intense. Some people report that they just don't get a break from their contractions when they have synthetic oxytocin. Other people report that they're just more painful and they come on more quickly. Another thing to consider is that when you get a contraction, your baby naturally is getting a bit squeezed, and so it can be a little bit distressing for them. But if you think that they're getting squeezed and then they're releasing, okay, when you're just laboring without an artificial hormone, the synthetic oxytocin is forcing contractions when your body's maybe not necessarily quite ready for them. And so a lot of the time, that pressure can make the baby appear very distressed, which can then lead to, okay, we want to monitor the baby's heart rate because it seems to be dipping a little bit or raising a little bit, and we're not too happy with that, which can then lead to potentially being bedbound, which is not the best thing for when you're in labour. Or, it might be, we want to get the baby out faster because it seems to be getting distressed. So we want to do this, or we want to do that. So it can often lead to further interventions, not always. And again, doing your research ahead of time can mean that if you do accept the hormone drip, you are able to still use your body and that drip to the best of its ability during that process. Another thing that's really worth mentioning, and this kind of links in a little bit to people saying that they're more intense, the contractions are more intense and they don't get a break, is that when your body releases oxytocin naturally, this is what's kind of happening with your contractions. So you have your release of oxytocin, contraction peaks, gets to its peak, and then gradually drops down. As your oxytocin drops down, that then releases, when it gets down here, it then releases a natural boost of endorphins, which are your body's natural painkillers. So it gives you a rest. Now, this peak often lasts around 60 seconds, and that's why we use the affirmation, I can do anything for 60 seconds. Because you can. And I use that in other things, like when I'm doing exercise, or if I've got to carry something really heavy or whatever, I'll say, like, I can do anything for 60 seconds, because 60 seconds is such a short amount of time. When this drops and releases the endorphins, it then gives you a natural rest before your next one starts. When you have the synthetic oxytocin, one, I'm not really sure if the contraction lasts the same amount of time. Two, it comes on much faster, is my understanding, so you haven't got that quite slow, gradual increase to that peak. And three, it doesn't then release the natural boost of endorphins, so you're not really getting that break. You might still get a break, of course, when that goes down the other side, but for some people, they don't really feel the benefit of that break. So that's really, really important, I think, for people to know that while a lot of healthcare professionals will call it synthetic we'll call it an oxytocin drip, not really differentiate between the fact that it's not actual oxytocin that's going into your body. As with anything, there are risks and benefits to having the hormone drip. I'm not going to go into those right now, but a couple of things I'd just like to clarify is that, one, if you were told you need the drip to hurry your labour along, you can say no. Consider the options, consider what your body is doing, and it's one of the things that I would really recommend before you even are in labour, you know, when you're doing your birth plan, to consider what you want to do in the instance that you are offered the hormone drip. Because if you were in the throes of labour and they say, look, we want to hurry things along, it's taken a little bit too long, we're going to put you on the drip. If you haven't done your research beforehand, there's a very, very good chance that you will just say yes, even if you don't really want it. So be sure what your feelings are on that before you go into the hospital. Now, one of the reasons why I recommend that being one of the things that you should always research, regardless of what your dream birth plan is because it's one of the most commonly offered interventions. But also it is an intervention that can really make a huge difference on your labour and how it's going. Okay, so what are your options for making the most out of the natural oxytocin that your body produces? Now, first of all, I would say that it is something that we should probably always be seeking to boost, whether or not we are pregnant, because we all benefit from it. It's much better to feel an oxytocin boost than it is to feel an anxiety boost or to have cortisol running through your body. There are ways that you can boost it. So what I would say is worth doing is when you were making your birth plan, it's worth putting in an oxytocin plan as part of it. Now, I say this because if you think, oh, well, yeah, I'll work really hard on that, are you actually going to do the things that you need to do? Because it is really, a real natural response for us to be like, yes, I'm going to relax. Yes, I'm going to do this. If you've got a day off coming that you weren't expecting, or a week off or whatever, yeah, I'm going to chill out that whole time. And then it's like, oh, actually, I'm just going to do these jobs that I haven't done, that I've been wanting to do. Oh, I'm going to redecorate that room. Oh, I'm going to clean all of it. Oh, do you know what I mean? We get in our own ways when it comes down to trying to do what's best for us. And so, especially when you were pregnant and coming towards the end of your pregnancy, prioritising that over cleaning the inside of the kitchen cupboards or whatever is very beneficial. So what I recommend doing is in your plan, having a section for how you were going to boost your oxytocin in the last few weeks of pregnancy, what you were going to do during labour, and what you were going to do postpartum for your oxytocin. Because remember that your oxytocin is also fantastic for bonding and breastfeeding. So, for example, in the last few weeks of your pregnancy, now you can't know, even if you've got an elective section, and by the way, I would absolutely still be boosting oxytocin if you've got an elective section on the cards, but even if you've got an elective section booked or you've got an induction date booked, you don't know when your labour will start, okay? Because you could have an elective section and go into labour spontaneously before that date gets here. You could have your induction date booked and it could take 3 days for that induction to actually work, or again, you could go into labour spontaneously. So it's worth doing regardless of what you've got on your plan for how you were going to give birth. And I would say doing it for definitely the last 2 to 3 weeks of what could potentially be the last 2 to 3 weeks of your pregnancy. And what I would be focusing on is getting out in nature, spending lots of time cuddled up, with your partner, being intimate with your partner, whether that's, getting really intimate with them or getting them to give you a massage, soft touch massage, just holding hands, what feels right for you based on how you were feeling in your pregnancy. Spending, if you've got other children, spending loads of time around them, cuddling up with them. Pets, pets are great oxytocin boosters. If you've got some friends that really make you laugh and that you really love spending time with, booking in some time with them, watching your favourite comedies or even like rom-coms. Try and stay away from like horror films, tense, stressful films, or really sad films. Things that really uplift you. Listening to uplifting music. If you've got any songs that make you feel all, lovely and warm inside, like a first dance song, for example, wedding music, anything like that, anything that's got like a nice romantic connection to it, maybe. Movement, spending a lot of time just like swaying, dancing, doing things that really release those nice endorphins in your body. Putting in time, maybe booking a pregnancy massage, a spa day, having nice baths, cool, not too hot baths, but anything that just makes you feel nice and warm and relaxed. And also book in at least once a week to eat one of your absolute favourite foods, whether it's like the fudgiest chocolate cake in the world, or a big plate of sweet potato fries, or like whatever foods that you think like, yes, that is my favourite food. Or book like your favourite restaurant or your favourite takeout, anything that you eat that makes you feel really, really happy. Make sure that you're doing that. Okay, and then when you're in labour, particularly when you're at home, keeping the lights low, having like fairy lights, candles, having like nice soft, like your favourite blankets nearby. Make sure that you create like scent anchors and like touch anchors. If you've got like a favourite cuddly toy from when you were a kid, maybe it's having that close by. Lots of photos of your other children if you've got them, or happy memories, your wedding day, your honeymoon, favourite holiday. Representations of your happy place. Again, with the music and the comedies, all of that is really fantastic for when you're at home. And there's lots of other ways as well. If you are going to a hospital or transferring to a hospital, if you've had we're planning a home birth and decide to transfer to the hospital, or you're planning a hospital birth, having an oxytocin go bag will also be really beneficial. So, for example, in the car, having your earbuds or headphones on with your special playlist and an eye mask will make a huge difference because you're not getting distracted. Or instead of a special playlist, having birth affirmations playing. When you get to the hospital, making it very clear that your birth partner is the one that's communicating, knowing whether or not you want to accept a vaginal examination before anybody, they might say, oh, well, before we can admit you, we need to do a vaginal examination. They don't. So knowing whether or not you want those kinds of interruptions. And when you get into your birth space, having a plan for what you need your birth partner to do. So having the lights lowered, battery operated tea lights, pictures on the wall, birth affirmations or music playing, whatever you had at home you need to have options to transfer with you, and a plan of what you want it to be, so that when you get there, nobody's asking you what to do with this and what to do with that. Your birth partner can just be like, right, I'm on it, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, while you are getting in the zone. Okay, so you've had this lovely hormone flowing, you've laboured at home, you've gone to the hospital, you've given birth, and now I want you to think about what you want to do to keep that oxytocin flowing, to potentially help you birth your placenta, unless you decide to have a managed placental birth. But also, if you're planning on breastfeeding, but even if you're not planning on breastfeeding, to just get the bonding going. And just, the hormone drop post-birth is big, and there is a lot happening with your body. Keeping that oxytocin boosted is just going to help overall. So snacks, your favourite snacks, think about what you want to eat post-birth. Keeping the baby on skin to skin as much as humanly possible, having your partner close by, not being separated as a unit. If you are going to breastfeed, then that both getting your oxytocin flowing but also getting the baby to latch will then have that same effect. What happens is the oxytocin allows the milk to flow through your breast tissue, and then when baby latches, another boost of oxytocin basically allows that milk to release into your baby's mouth. So just, keeping that going will be fantastic. Keeping the music playing, keeping the lights low for as long as you can. I can appreciate that there might be some circumstances where not all of this is possible, but for the most part, most of it should be possible. And again, just having that plan in place will make it easier for you, because you haven't then got to say, oh wait, I want this, I want that, I want that. People already know what you want, okay? And you might be thinking, well, what's gonna make them follow through on that for me? Your birth partner, okay? Because your birth partner is there to advocate for you, be your biggest cheerleader, and get stuff done, okay? A great thing to know is what foods naturally boost oxytocin as well, because we've talked about how happy memories, happy music, loved ones, laughter will all help boost it, but there are some food sources that can as well, and chamomile tea and chocolate are two great ones. So stocking up on those two things and having them just, streaming through your body. I mean, you might not want to eat chocolate all the time and you might want to break from tea, but again, it's just going to really help. And especially for that, if you are breastfeeding, or even if you're bottle feeding and you're sitting there having some chocolate to eat, is going to be lovely. So it's just really important to know what you were doing with oxytocin and how it can help. Now, I have a free birth plan guide and template which you get if you sign up to my newsletter. Now, I'm thinking of adding an oxytocin guide to that, so that if you're using my guide and template for your birth plan, and it's a really extensive one, it's quite a document, it's very valuable, that you have got that extra support for the oxytocin, because like I said, one of the most important things that you can know, and it's the one thing that if I had to pick, I would say learn about that, because you can, there's lots of other things that are really important: birth positioning, building, your confidence up, understanding physiological birth and what's happening during that time. There's loads of things that are super important, but if your body isn't producing that oxytocin, then your contractions aren't going to work properly. So knowing how to do that yourself is just going to make a world of difference. And there's lots of links to reduced oxytocin and like mental health, stress, and all sorts of other things. So I'd really recommend looking into it. Okay, so that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that it's been a valuable episode. The next episode I'll be doing will be an update on my pregnancy, as I will be in week 20. So I'll be giving you a little update on how things are going up to that point. I'm not quite there yet. And then I'm not sure after that. I'm not sure what August's episodes are going to be yet. But thank you so much for joining me today. Don't forget to give us a share, subscribe, like, follow, and I will see you next time.